you invest a lot in automation. You deploy robots as well. 50% of your warehouse operations are automated.
We have just over 30,000 SKUs that are inside of that particular AutoStore that is moving product, bringing it to our folks for picking, packing, and being able to put product into the hands of our customers. It has absolutely advanced us and moved us forward in two big areas. One, productivity, but the other side has been accuracy. We learned other things about our business. We learned other ways to handle and process product that we would not have been exposed to had we not gone down the path and leveraging some of those technology areas. So for us, the balance really becomes, how do we look at being on the leading edge versus the bleeding edge when it comes to technology, leveraging those dollars in a positive way, even if it is a failure.
I'm Karthik Chidambaram, founder and CEO of DCCAP, an ERP-first integration platform built for distributors and manufacturers. On the Driven by DCCAP podcast, I sit down with industry leaders, innovators, and change makers to explore what's driving success in distribution, manufacturing, technology, and the industry as a whole. Real conversations, real insights. You don't want to miss this. Thank you for joining me on a new episode of the Driven by DCCAP podcast. I'm joined by Brian Schlise, President of APR Supply. Brian, thank you so much, and it's great to see you.
Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
So Brian, tell us about APR Supply. You're the president of the company. You work with the Weaver family. It's been a 4-generation business, getting into the 5th generation, as we talked about.
Right.
And tell us about the APR Supply business and what is your role there as a president?
So APR Supply has been in business for over 100 years. We are moving our way through generations, and I was able to join the organization this past year as president, helping move the organization forward from a leadership perspective and also be able to be a part of that succession planning to make the next generation successful in their leadership roles. So APR Supply is based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, grew up just up the road in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, where we were engaged in the plumbing wholesale business, moved into HVAC, and have continued to expand into industrial PVF, our showroom products of decorative brands, as well as irrigation.
And you work with the Weaver family closely. And but then, when it comes to family, right? So you're an outsider. But how does that work, right? Because there would be some family members who are interested in the business, and you jokingly talked about the 5th generation, 6 months old, planning to get them on and all that, right? But some people may not even be interested to get onto the family business. So what is your role there? How do you work with the family? What are the family dynamics at play? How do you make that happen?
So my journey to joining APR, I started about 8 months ago. Really probably started about 10 years ago when I started to get to know Scott in other industry events. And we've been connected. We've shared ideas. We've worked together in different capacities. So this was a long journey to this point of joining in a leadership role. As somebody from the outside, I really look at that as an honor and a privilege to join the company as a non-family member in such an important leadership position. And that is something that I really look at as being special and, again, humbling. So as far as a role goes, it really comes from understanding where the generations have come from, understanding what's important to them in regards to culture, history, and where they'd like to be able to continue. It's really been wonderful to join and learn about the governance that's been put in place and the importance of that governance to really manage and guide the family business and the relationships. It's made it significantly easier to navigate those waters and understand where the family has come, what's important to them, and how they would like to see that business continue to move forward in the future.
And I think it does help a lot to have an external member, who's not a part of the family, kind of work through this, because I think this is a great thing, other family businesses could take on as well, right? Because if everything is in the family, then, and you talked about governance and all that. So it does help a lot having an external member like you.
I think having an outside perspective and a different view from business, from the community, as well as family is an important piece. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the Weaver family will make decisions that are in their best interest and will take care of things. But they're very open to conversations, insights, and inputs from others. Also, part of that succession planning and experience that generations are going through has been having outside experiences. So formal education, connections, training, but also experiencing work at other companies and not always just being in the bubble and seeing the world from a very controlled and limited perspective. So as we have family members coming in, as we have leadership coming in, those perspectives are important that they're bringing from other points of view.
And at APR, you invest a lot in automation. You guys deploy robots as well. 50% of your warehouse operations are automated.
So a couple of years back, it's been about 3 years ago now, we invested in the AutoStore process inside of our distribution center. So we have just over 30,000 SKUs that are inside of that particular AutoStore that is moving product, bringing it to our folks for picking, packing, and being able to put product into the hands of our customers. It has absolutely advanced us and moved us forward in two big areas. One, productivity, but the other side has been accuracy. The level of accuracy and the experience that our customers receive because of that has gone up tremendously and really brings an advantage. The other area that we moved into from automation has been the use of robots, moving product from one point in the building to another point, moving it from receiving to put away areas, and then from picking and packing to outbound doors. Again, really moving us forward in different ways, and applying that technology has been a great learning curve. But we've been able to advance that, move that forward, and we're looking forward to applying it to other areas of our business as well.
And these require significant investments, right? So some of this may not even yield a good ROI immediately. It might take a period of time. So how do you evaluate that? And, what is the thought process behind that?
So as we look at it, we think about how is this helping us, A, become more productive, but B, more importantly, where does it help us redeploy our folks? Where do we take our teammates and move them into areas that become more about thought process versus repetitive tasks? How are they able to become more ingrained in the business and bring value to the decisions that they make, and where they move that forward? Other considerations that we look at when it comes to bringing technology in place is what might we learn from it that it was not directly believed to be our end result. So as we've looked at technology, our thematic goal for 2025 as a company was be bold. And one of the aspects of being bold was our willingness to also fail fast. And in technology, it's one of those areas where we look and we say, this is the desired outcome that we would like to have. We are willing to invest money, but we're also willing to admit that this is not necessarily working the way that we want. And we've had some experiences with that. However, it was still money well invested because we learned other things about our business. We learned other ways to handle and process product that we would not have been exposed to had we not gone down the path and leveraging some of those technology areas. So for us, the balance really becomes, how do we look at being on the leading edge versus the bleeding edge when it comes to technology, leveraging those dollars in a positive way, even if it is a failure. And that becomes perfectly acceptable and part of our culture. Another piece of ROI that we look at now in going forward with using the AutoStore technology is it really starts our sales team thinking about what are the products that we would like to offer and move into the marketplace. So if I can find items that are this big and can go into an automated system, I know that our overall profitability on that particular SKU is going to be greater than something that requires forklift traffic through the building, manually lifting and putting that product up on pallet racking and bringing it down and moving it to the truck in a different way. So it's starting to lead our thought process in a different way, which was not just about productivity, but how is it now impacting product selection, where we're offering product to our customers, and how that leads into our overall profitability.
So the learning is also the ROI, right? So even if you do something and you fail fast, I can totally relate to that. Especially when it comes to technology investments. Hey, do it. It's not going to be easy. That's
Sure.
why you're investing. But then you fail fast. Hey, it doesn't work. Cut your losses. Just move on. Yeah.
Well, we also look at technology as something that if we are managing individual things in a granular way, we're not going to be successful. We look at it as investing in a portfolio. We're going to invest in multiple things with an understanding that a certain percentage of them are not going to yield positive results.
Mm-hmm.
But because we've been entrepreneurial, because we've been willing to be on that front edge and making decisions, we know that the entire portfolio of technology investments will pay off and be positive in the long run.
You talked about AutoStore, and we also briefly chatted about this last night, right? So you even envision a store where, hey, there's nobody there. Somebody, whatever you order, it automatically picks it up, or you get a curry to pick the shipment, just get it delivered. So you see that happening?
So I think one of the next big steps that we're going to be able to take, and I think this is really going to take an entire industry movement to get there, is really going to be going from the standard UPC barcode on products to understanding how we can leverage RFID technology and have data and information embedded in that tag that is applied to all of the products that we handle. And that will revolutionize the way in which we do business, from the point of receiving and being able to understand what product is coming into our building, being able to put it on shelves and have tracking of where that product is inside of the buildings, cycle counts and physical inventory changes, and then the customer experience changes. If it's being delivered, how we can track a particular item at a SKU level and where it's moving throughout the course of the supply chain process, but also getting to the point of customer experience, where we envision the opportunity for some of our best partners to be able to have access to a store of products 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can self-shop, they can self-serve, take the product they want, and by simply grabbing it and essentially walking out the door through a scanning portal, it will identify who that customer was, what product they took, and be able to attach it to an invoice, and they can move on and move forward. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and right now I envision that connecting, but having to go back and really finding the true partnership in the entire supply chain of how that product is labeled and how data and information is carried with it.
Yeah, with face recognition technology and all that, right?
Right.
But then, let's say this happens, and this is happening right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's beginning to happen. So obviously there's going to be a lot of job losses.
Right. I don't see that as job losses. I see it as a way in which we can become more effective, more productive. But again, we have invested in technology. Our headcount has never gone down. As we've brought these technologies in, it's allowed us to grow further with our existing group of teammates, but also, again, redeploy them in positions in which they can be more effective in driving the business. From a distribution center standpoint, it goes into how are we being better at quality checking. From a customer-facing standpoint, it's how do we spend more time eyeball to eyeball, building relationships and connecting with people versus handling keystroke work. That becomes really the way that we look at things. So I don't see it as the loss of or a reduction of teammates and staff members. It's a matter of how do we redeploy them into more effective roles to, again, create a better experience for our customer. And at the end of the day, that's what we're driving towards. Our world is all commoditized. The products we sell are commodities. The major service items that we support are commoditized. What will make a difference is how we differentiate around the customer experience. And that's something that we're going to do with our people.
And yeah, it's definitely good for the people as well, because, they get to do more interesting work. It's not just the same mundane work, right? Yeah. And are you already experimenting with this at APR? Are you guys already doing that? When do you see that happening?
So those are things that we've been discussing in a previous life. We had tested and moved forward with that proof of concept with a couple of outside suppliers. At APR, we're now talking about where does this fit into our strategic plan? How do we leverage that, and how do we move forward in the near future?
You also spent a considerable amount of time at AD, right? You were on the board of the affiliated distributors for the HVAC.
Correct.
And how is that experience helping you? And also tell us about the AD, for the audience who are not too familiar with AD, or how does that help?
So affiliated distributors is an organization that's been around for several years. It would generically be called a buying group. However, it goes well beyond being a simple buying group. It is a network of entrepreneurial companies that come together with what they call a spirit of independence. And we believe that when we come together, we become stronger as a collective group, not just in purchasing, but also in networking, in terms of connecting and understanding the business world, the challenges we face, how we bring resources together and scale them together that we might not be able to do as independent organizations. That really was motivating to me. So as AD has come together and continues to grow, It is in multiple verticals, not just HVAC and plumbing that we happen to be in, but also electrical, decorative brands, drywall, safety, all kinds of other divisions. So that has been a powerful organization to help APR grow, as well as all of the other independent distributors that they support. From a leadership perspective, it was an honor to be able to serve as the chairman of the HVAC divisional board, thinking about our members, what is important to them, how do we negotiate and find solutions and partnerships with our key suppliers, being able to bring those people to the table and not just represent our own individual companies, but acting on behalf of membership as a whole. For me, it was a tremendous learning experience to be able to connect with our supply partners, but also to be able to sit on that board with really intelligent, smart business owners and leaders that I was able to learn from. When I left that position a couple of years ago, I almost felt guilty because I think I took a little bit more than I gave. But I look forward to being able to continue to give back into that community going forward.
You've served on both sides, right? Both on the AD side and also on the distribution side. But let's say I'm a distributor and I'm a part of the AD network. How can I leverage AD to the fullest?
Yeah, you know what? I really think it all comes down to looking at the service providers, understanding where people come together to, again, truly partner and build relationships that can grow the business beyond just buying at the best price. Being able to connect and network with folks, for me, was the biggest. How do I find like-minded people with an entrepreneurial spirit that are looking at growing their business faster than the industry as a whole? And the vast majority of value that I got was what our owner calls the hallway talk. It wasn't always sitting in a room listening to guest speakers. It was the connections that happened in the hallway. What did you think about that? How are your challenges happening? Hey, is it okay if I pick up the phone and call you in a couple of weeks and see if I might be able to connect my marketing team with your marketing team and really work through some of these different issues, or connecting our IT teams in a similar way? That's where we really found the true value.
Switching gears a little bit and talking about leadership. And you talk about stewardship, and also you are coaching a softball team. And how does all this play into the role you're doing right now?
You know, I look at it and I come from the perspective that stewardship is really my way of approaching the business and the team. That probably comes from a background in faith, where I look at and I understand things from that perspective. Stewardship to me is an important piece, particularly in the role where I am today. It comes with the notion that we may not have necessarily built this thing, but we own it for a certain period of time. We're responsible for supervising, tending to it, and making sure that we're able to transfer that on to the next generation in a better place than what we accepted it and brought it on to begin with. It also comes with a certain level of accountability. We're not just asked to take care of something and maintain it in the same status in which we received it, but instead, how do we take our talents and the gifts that we have and the resources that are made available to us to grow and move it forward in a more meaningful way? And the third piece of stewardship that I look at is purpose. What is our purpose and how are we trying to improve it beyond ourselves? This is not something for us, but it's for the next generation. It's for the existing teammates that are there. It's for the community in which we operate. Those become important pieces of stewardship as I look at it. As we go through and we take care of those things, I look at that from the role that I stand in today. I'm a part of an organization that has been built over 100 years and has been inside of family leadership. And I've been given an opportunity to lead and have been entrusted to take that and not just manage a P&L and drive bottom lines, but instead understand, how do we look at the people? How do we understand succession planning of the organization as a whole? How do we understand making it better and knowing that I have a small time or a small mark in time to make an impression and move that into the next generation so that it can last another 100 years into the future?
And yeah, I mean, you always have to make it better. How are you contributing? How are you making the whole thing better, right? Well said. But then how do you manage time, right? Because, you talked about, you coach a softball team and then you also give back to the church.
Sure.
But one question a lot of times, a lot of people have is, hey, I'm already in a full-time job, but, where do you find the time or how do you balance?
Sure. So over the course of 11 years, I coached about 35 softball teams between my three daughters. And it was something that I looked at was A, wonderful to be able to connect with and be a part of my family. B, it was an opportunity to do something outside of work, and it grounded me in a different way. And I think that's an important piece of being able to give back and have connections in the community, understanding what we're there for. I was not coaching softball in a recreational league to produce future all-star players. It was to be able to connect, be able to grow a community and help transition young adults into the world to be great members of society by A, learning how to win, B, more importantly, how to lose, and still have a competitive spirit. But how I looked at that opportunity really came from, and the excitement was not, it was understanding the process. And this is where I take this back to stewardship and connections inside of APR Supply and my leadership. And I don't know that I would have had these opportunities if I was only inside the company. But looking and saying, with softball, it starts with teaching mechanics. How do we go through the basics of mechanics? Then it was, how do we understand the rules of the game? And how does that work? But then what became really more engaging to me and more rewarding was, as I worked with these young ladies over time and have seen them grow, we then got into strategy and philosophy of the game and application to the point where now they were starting to think ahead and they were making decisions on their own, and they did not have to always look back at a coaching staff member to say, what am I supposed to do? They were looking ahead and thinking about that themselves. And we would then empower them to go out and make decisions about how to play the game. And I think that's the same type of thing that I look at inside of APR Supply and my leadership there. How do we take and clearly define what is important? What is our goal? How do we make sure that we work with people on the mechanics and fundamentals? How do we explain the rules and the guidelines inside of which we want to operate inside of our core culture? And then how do we ask them, what do you need to be successful? What are the resources that you need? And then empower them to go do that job. It's very rewarding to see things like that happen and come together.
Yeah, it is very rewarding. I can relate to this. We run something called the DC Cap Pali, or called the DC Cap School, where, I interact with students a lot. And then, it's also learning for us, right? Because you also want to do things outside of work. It can be work all the time. But like you rightly said, when you work with these students, or when you teach these students, you're actually building the future, you're building a younger generation.
Right.
And they'll turn out to be smarter than you. And then I think that's a great feeling. Yeah.
Well, and I think that my experience through coaching as well as work through our youth group at church has really given me a different perspective on the world. Again, it takes us outside of our little bubble. It helps remind us that our work and our job is not our identity. That does not define who we are, and gives us an experience to see things from a whole different lens. I've learned a whole different side of empathy. I've learned a whole different level of patience, and have seen the world through a different lens that I'm able to take back and then apply into the business world. But I think those are important pieces that we take away.
No, totally. I think it's very important for every leader to do this, and not just leader, right? Any professional to do things outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a great different perspective, like you rightly said, empathy. And there's a whole world outside who's not using tech, who's
Right.
not doing big things, but small things, but it's big for them. And we learn that as well. Yeah.
Well, and it's made some wonderful connections that we apply even at APR that we probably would not have seen if we stayed inside the walls of the office. Getting out and connecting with people, seeing the challenges that they face, understanding what gives them purpose and how they're motivated, understanding the needs of our community by being inside of it and asking questions, participating. Again, I feel that I learn more than what I'm giving. And it comes with that open mindset of how am I here? Why am I here? And what am I looking to take away from the experience? And between serving in the community, mission trips, coaching, connections, it is vitally important that leadership understand those things and be able to take that back in. I think that's one of the reasons that we've been successful, and I'm really proud of one of our programs at APR Supply, which is called our Dreamers Fund. This was something that was established in previous generations with the Tices, where they identified human needs and understood that the company was there and able to help bridge the gap outside of a paycheck. And how do we connect with people? So as an example, our Dreamers Fund is not to necessarily support individuals in financial issues, although finances do come into that. But probably one of the most rewarding opportunities we had is we have had a longtime teammate who had some medical issues and challenges that affected his dental health and teeth. And that is one of those things that can impact a person beyond just the medical side, but psychologically, how confident are they and how does that play? And we were able to pay the bills and help that individual have an entire new set of teeth put in. And it wasn't about giving them those teeth. It was the confidence that came with a smile, being able to drive forward in the community in a different way that he'd not been able to experience. And those are wonderful connections that, again, if we were just inside the building, if we were just inside the business, if we were just operating off of spreadsheets and financial statements, we would not understand those connections and being able to make those. And again, that gets us into the community as a whole.
The theme of this podcast is driven.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you driven?
So for me, it is, again, looking at it from a standpoint of stewardship and service. My purpose, the way that I look at is, how do I take an existing team? How do I help align them? How do I bring them together? And how do I empower them to become independent and do bigger and better things that they were able to do before? I understand that I'm not going to be able to accomplish everything on my own. We can only do that through our teammates, and understanding how to cascade that through an organization. That, to me, is what drives me, both in the business world as well as outside. And when I can take and be able to work with people, coach them, train them, get them up to speed. And then I think the big connection is getting them to understand application. What is this knowledge that we've been able to give and be able to provide resources? The real power then becomes, what is the application? How does this connect to my life? How does this connect, and what does success look like? And then we let them go. We empower them and unleash them into those places. That, to me, is where my passion lies.
Yeah, it's about the team, yeah?
Right.
How do you keep yourself updated with what's going on around the industry? Is there a book you're reading right now?
You know what? From an industry standpoint, these type of events where we go to industry events, we stay connected with people, we sit on boards, those are big pieces. For me, I'm constantly reading, but it's usually around self-improvement or self-help. So for right now, there's two books that I'm looking at. One is called The Daily Stoic, and it is...
Is that Ryan Holiday?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
and understanding Ryan Holiday's view and perspective, and that helps me stay focused on life and stay connected, right? Understanding that two big pieces I take away from that theory and philosophy. Things in and of themselves are neither positive nor negative. We as people assign those values to things that happen. Individual activities and happenings simply are what they are. It's how we approach them. And the other big piece is, how do we look at and how do we understand our role, which is identifying the things that we can control and the things that we cannot control. And being able to separate those and saying, I'm not going to worry about this, but I'm going to be focused on the things that I can control and what I can influence in my life. The other place that I'm focused on right now is called Daily Meditations, calling it a day, Daily Meditations for the Workaholic. And that was copywritten in 1990. And it's out of print right now, but to be able to go through that and look at the things that were referenced over 35 years ago and be able to go, they're still relevant today. And how do we balance and how do we manage ourselves becomes really key, I think, to being able to move on an even keel and lead.
I recently read one of Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good one as well. So Brian, thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on this learning journey. At DCCAP, we love sharing what we learn, and we also make your data flow better. Your ERP is the heart of your operations. DCCAP is the brain. We make sure your data connects seamlessly across all your systems. To know more about us, please visit dccap.com. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any distribution secrets. Catch you on a new episode soon.